Hello and welcome to this episode of The Heart-Led Leader. And today I'm so excited because I have a very, very special guest. This is a woman who is making waves and changing the way that people think about money in their mindset, and also looking at the whole picture actually of their life and their business and how that's contributing to what's going on. I'll let her speak more to that. But what I love most about this woman is that I've only known her for a short time, and I actually came across her through a webinar, and it was a free webinar, and I got so much value out of it. And it was all around profit and intentionality when it comes to money, really practical steps. And I really enjoyed that. But what I enjoyed most is and what I enjoy most is her bubbly personality. She's so sparkly, and so you can see her inspiration. It just oozes out of her when she speaks about this topic. She's so in alignment and on purpose. And you can really, that comes across in her messaging and everything that she's doing. So I bought her book, which is fantastic. And then I got to hear yesterday an incredible podcast episode with the fabulous Michelle Gordon, who's the happy, healthy nurse. And some of my listeners here have really enjoyed that episode. It was one of the most listened to, actually. And so Michelle's also been working with Claire, and I got to hear a full picture of the extent of the work that she's doing, not just with the practicalities of money and profit, but also in all areas of business, and including the impact of personal aspects on business, on profit, on money making. So I'll let her speak more to it, but I'm really excited to introduce you to Clare Wood, money coach or money mentor. And Claire, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much. And Mel, I have to say, I've been on a lot of podcasts. I think that was the most eloquent and thoughtful introduction I have ever had. So I
Oh,
just want to take a moment and recognize that and say a big thank you. I'm really delighted to be here. So thank you for having me.
you're welcome. It's a pleasure. And I really love actually that you're here because a lot of my episodes are about leadership in particular, or coming from authenticity and empowering people. And I guess the intention of the show is to offer value and inspiration and to really encourage people and give them ways and tools to come back to the truth of who they are. And part of that process is really becoming aware of and clarifying where our blocks are, and the aspects in our lives that are, challenging or uncomfortable, or that we're just not breaking through in. And often there are so many blind spots in those areas, and it takes a mentor or someone to step in and help uncover and to give those action steps. So that's what I've loved about seeing in you. And I guess I want to start with just offering you the chance to just tell our audience, Claire, who are you and what are you doing right now? What are your offers in the world at this
Yeah,
point?
fabulous. Well, if you don't mind, I might go back a little bit to my background and then talk about how I've come to be where I am now and what I offer. So, I actually started my career as an accountant. I went from university, I studied an undergrad Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in accounting. And then I became an accountant. And I worked for many years as an accountant. And I'm sure many of the listeners can relate to this. Being in a role where I guess I've always been great with maths and spreadsheets, but I knew that this wasn't my purpose. There was this calling inside me that said, this isn't what you're meant to be doing. And I had a lot of resentment because I'm like, how did I end up here? Why am I doing this? My dad's an accountant, and so I held a lot of resentment to my dad for forcing me to become an accountant as well, which of course he didn't. Um, and I worked for many years in corporate finance roles. I became a commercial manager, providing corporate leadership teams with direction around the best way to understand their numbers and what it meant strategically for their businesses. And then I got made redundant when I was on maternity leave with my first child. And that was kind of the time when I stepped into becoming a business coach. And at the start, I was very, I guess, embarrassed about my background. The coaching world is sort of like sales and sexy and Instagram, and I just kind of hid this part of me away because I thought no one wants to know about numbers. No one wants an accountant. It's
Mm.
just boring and it's not cool like all these young, gorgeous Instagrammers I'm seeing. I'm joining here later in life, and
Still
yeah, and
gorgeous
then
though.
what I oh, thank you. Well, what I realized on my journey was that every time I started working with a client, what I was doing was exactly that. I'm like, I can't flash about Instagram without actually having a look at your numbers and teaching you the foundations of money. So over time, I actually started to embrace that. And I started to really say, this is actually my superpower, and I don't need to be embarrassed of it. And that's, I've now called myself a business profit coach. I also have called myself a money mentor over the years. And now that's it. That's where I lead from. I wrote a best-selling book called Intentional Profit, which, as you mentioned at the start, you've read. Oh, you've got a copy there. So yeah, I've got my book. I do one-on-one coaching with people who are sort of at that multiple 6 to 7 figure mark in their business, helping them to have tailored one-on-one support. I have a high-end mastermind for multiple 6 figure business owners. Again, we do retreats. We have beautiful space where people can connect with people at a similar stage of business.
Mm.
And I also have my program. So I'm delivering one of them at the moment, which is called the Profit Academy Foundations.
Mhm.
It sounds unsexy. It's all about the basics of business finance, but everyone who's doing the program says they love the way that I break it down and make it easy. I don't have the usual, I don't know. I guess I'm not the typical accountant.
Mm.
And so the way that I teach about it is trying to make it really understandable and relatable and fun.
Well, you certainly do that. That's your energy, as I said, comes across in everything, every interaction that I've had with you so far. That's very much what comes through. So I love that whole picture. And I actually love that you have identified superpower, because I love speaking about this concept. Everyone's got a superpower, right? And particularly in their business or in the space of leadership. If they're not in leadership or business, in their own lives, everyone's got their own unique gifts and superpowers. And it's about how we bring them to life in the world and really access and share those gifts. So you've identified that superpower, you've identified everything that you're doing. Why? What's your intention, Claire? Why is this important to you right now? Why are you so passionate about sharing this in the world?
I feel that a lot of women, both in and out of business, have traditionally not been empowered around money.
Mm.
It's not that long ago where a couple of generations ago where women didn't work. Women didn't know what was going on at all with their finances. That was a man's job.
Mm.
And I think that there is still some of that around. And what I have found is that a lot of women are scared to look at their money. They're scared to dive into this, and they're scared to put their hand up and say they need help. I also have observed, coming from a corporate background, where profit was always first.
Mm.
Like sales was a secondary number that we'd be like, yeah, where are sales at? When I came into small business world, I found it really interesting. And you'll notice actually earlier that I slipped into this pattern that we see online talking about 6 figures. 6 figures doesn't mean anything. You could earn 6 figures of revenue and spend 6 figures in expenses and have no money left at the end.
Mm.
And so I guess I'm on a bit of a mission to teach people about understanding their finances, teach particularly women, empower them so that they can step into their confidence and they can be building businesses that are sustainable. That really means that they, can be building a business and life of their dreams.
Mm. Yeah, and that's such a unique, and when you say it, it's almost like a light bulb goes on. Hey, that aha moment of, oh yeah, it's not just it's profit that matters. So what would you say, like, in what you're seeing in the people that you're working with, the businesses that you're working with? You've just identified that women often seem to have fear around, what do you think are the blocks with women? Like, why are we scared to do that? Or where else are the blocks? Is it just fear? Are there limiting beliefs? Are there, ancestral kind of patternings? What's the combination of the energetic and the mind kind of at work here in this
Oh, you've just
area?
touched on so many things there that you know what's going on. So, firstly, we know that trauma stays in our body for generations, to the extent that even if we haven't experienced a trauma firsthand ourselves, if one of our ancestors, I believe it's up to 4 generations,
Mm.
we can experience a trauma response as if it's happened to us. But in saying that as well, most of us have experienced money trauma in our life in some way, shape, or form. And when people think about trauma, they usually think of the concept of big T trauma. So something incredibly traumatic, ending up homeless on the street or something like that. But there can be lots of little micro money traumas that happen to us. And some examples of this might be when you announced to the world, I'm going to start a business. And people say, that's ridiculous. You've got a good job. Why don't you stay there?
Mm.
Uh, when you actually start your business and you get your first client and then they leave. And you're like, I knew this was all a stupid idea. Nobody wants this. The first time someone tells you you're too expensive, it becomes a micro trauma. And all of these little moments come together to form what we then will interpret as a message, or that will become a belief that we begin to have.
Mm.
So, for example, if your whole childhood you were told we can't afford that, we can't afford that, don't be silly, um, all of those things, that will start to become a message that you start to believe.
Mm.
And a lot of times we're completely unaware what these subconscious beliefs we hold are. They're so deeply ingrained and programmed in us that we don't even have the consciousness of what they are.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people feel like, why are you talking about energetics and mindset and all of this stuff? Like, you're a coach. I cannot teach about profit without people understanding the why of why they're doing things.
Mhm.
When you would have come through my training, one of the first things I say is, hey, the reason that you do this, it's not your fault. You're avoiding money because something's happened that's taught you that money is something to be scared of.
Mm.
And so that's why I can't really talk about it in isolation. But
Mm.
in a nutshell, you've had a ton of experiences, either directly or indirectly, that have shaped your beliefs around money. And as a result of that, there's going to be all of these fears, limitations, stories, subconscious programming that exists in the space of money and managing your finances. And the way that we start to shift that is by bringing awareness to it, by highlighting it. And a lot of times I see people have these aha moments. I was in my 30s when I had my first, whoa, I'd never even realized that I thought about money like that. I never even realized there's a reason why I sabotage my money in that way. I never realized there's a reason why I love to spend money really quickly.
Mm.
And when you start to unpack these stories, that's when you really can start to do the deep work in healing and reprogramming.
Amazing. I love it. And I absolutely wholeheartedly agree because I had an aha moment probably a couple of years ago now, maybe only 18 months ago, actually, when, yeah, starting to look at that work and become aware of that concept of limiting beliefs around money in particular. I've always worked with limiting beliefs and, energetics in my work, well-being work. But also interesting, I can just share a quick example with the audience. Uh, from me personally, just being a bit vulnerable, but founding and leading a school and getting it to such a healthy place. When I left, it had a $1.6 million balance sheet, yet we still had the lowest fees in the country. We were here to serve our community, but I did such a great job at managing. That was my job, to manage that budget every day. And yet in my own life for myself, there's not the same energy or awareness or intention or receivership. And so that was really interesting and shows me that personal inclination to be so, as a woman, able to support and nourish and build up something or someone else before self. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone could identify with that, but I love that you're bringing awareness to that concept and how it can play out. Could you speak to maybe how else, like how do you see that play out? Because we can talk about energetics and manifesting and magnetizing and aligning with the energy of money. And I know there are kind of big differences in schools of thought in alignment and manifestation and abundance, and then just taking action. And how do you see that we merge those two worlds effectively?
Yeah, well, I have a bit of a different, I guess, I'm quite a practical person. So when I talk about manifestation and energetics, the truth is a lot of this actually exists in neuroscience.
Mhm.
And I love to learn more about brain science. I listen to so many podcast interviews with uh, neurologists and neuroscience who talk about, well, this isn't some woo-woo concept. It's rooted in practical science.
Mm.
And let me share a little bit about what that means. So, like I said earlier, like these stories, our brain is starting to form little pathways of what we hear, what we're surrounded by, the people we're around. We start to become like the people that we're around, and that becomes really easy and familiar. So we're forming these neural pathways, these I guess trails that are really familiar again and again and again and again. And if you want to step away from it, like it's like going on a bushwalk. If you want to go off the bushwalk, it's really difficult. You know, you're running into long grass, you might have to snap a few branches. It's much easier just to stick to the trodden path.
Mhm.
And this is why it's so hard for us to change. And because we're just used to doing the same thing. And particularly when it comes to our money, what can happen is that we just keep repeating the same old familiar patterns because it feels easy. It's what we're used to doing.
Mhm.
And to actually change is really uncomfortable. And this is why when we want to step into a space of magnetism or be manifesting,
Mhm.
it feels really uncomfortable because it's something that is unfamiliar to us. It's so much easier for us to keep repeating the same thing that we've always done.
Or it's
And
slow, right? It's also, or it can be slow. Even if you're doing work and you're not
absolutely,
seeing change quickly, then it can be defeating. That's the other part.
100%.
Yeah.
And so what we'll do is we'll want to revert back to, well, let's just go back to what's old and familiar.
Yes.
So, you know, in terms of manifestation, I truly think that the first step is creating intentionality about what it is that you want. I really believe that like 95% of people on this planet don't actually know what they want. They
Mm.
don't have clear goals. They
Yes.
don't really ever spend time and say, well, what do I want? And start to create intention around that. So that's sort of the first step. And
Yeah.
then the next step is actually taking the uncomfortable action, doing the uncomfortable things
Mm.
to start to create it. And it's really interesting again when you learn more about this, but how when you talk about magnetism, there's tiny, subtle little nuances that are often undetectable to the human ear or eye that
Mm.
specialists can detect that really will work with whether people are indeed magnetized to work with you as a leader
Mhm.
or there's something, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, sometimes when people are talking, like something about them just
Yeah.
isn't sitting right.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's not that something's not sitting right for you. There's something about the way that you perceive the world.
Mhm.
And I know that I've had examples of, you know, leaders I've followed online. And I'm like, why does everyone like them? There's something about them that just gives me the ick. I can't put my finger on it. Yeah, you're laughing. You're relating to this one. And then other times you're like, I don't know what it is about that person, but I am so drawn into their world and the way that they talk. And I have to hand over my money and work with this person and be in their energy. And it comes down to these subtle little nuances around our voice, our mannerisms, our confidence as well. Some people's confidence will be repellent to you. I know sometimes when I'm around people, I'm like, whoa, they are too much for me.
Mm.
And then other times you're like, wow, that confidence that they have is absolutely magnetic.
Mm.
And so when I talk about energetics and manifestation around the space of money, for me, a lot of it is rooted. I do believe that there is space for magic as well, but I think that a lot of it is really rooted in practical brain science
Mm.
and our physiology and the messages that we're subconsciously sending out in the way that we present.
Absolutely. And for me, my experience of that is, or I would sum that up as authenticity. So my
Yeah.
experience of what you're saying is when you're truly authentic in yourself, when you're grounded in your energy, in your intentionality, in who you are. That's one of the first pillars of my leadership work. in any conversation, in any meeting, in any offering, it's what's the intention. And if you're truly aligned with that intention and you're embodying it in really authentically, then your messaging will be clear. Then for me, that's frequency. Then people are experiencing and drawn to whatever the frequency or vibration is that you are emanating through your sense of alignment or not. So
love that. Love, yes.
So Claire, what's been the biggest, would you be willing to share a bit of a personal story about an example of a place or a way that you weren't empowered in this way, what the outcome was, or a change that you made and what the experience has been for you? Something
Yeah,
tangible.
absolutely. I mean, look, I've had, I think that people can often think, as a profit coach, I've never had, challenges around money or times where things have gotten tight. That's not the case.
Mm,
I have had a time back it was 2019, and it was probably one of the worst times of my life.
mm,
At the time, I had two little kids. My youngest was two, and actually, he would have only been 18 months. And basically, so both my husband and I are entrepreneurs. He started his business when I was 7, 8 months pregnant with my first child, and we had a massive Sydney mortgage. We took the leap then, and then I got made redundant a few months later while I was on maternity leave with this
wow.
huge Sydney mortgage. Um, we At the start, it actually wasn't too bad at the start. I seemed to attract my first few paying clients relatively easily, but we hit a bit of a roadblock a few years later when my second child had come along. As you can imagine, you're juggling a lot of pieces. There was just a lot going on, and financially, yeah, we hit a bit of a really tough place. The one, I guess, saving grace is that because of the tools that I teach, one of the tools that I teach about is called a cash flow forecast. So
Mm,
essentially, what we're always doing is looking into the coming months. So seeing what is coming in and going out and when. So I use this tool and have for as long as I can remember in my business, in my husband's business, and in our personal life.
mhm,
So we have what's coming in, what's going out, and when.
mhm,
So I knew that this crunch time was coming
mm,
because my husband had been through a really slow time in his business. And when we were looking forward at all of our household expenses and business expenses, I knew that there was going to be this period of time where things were going to get really tight
mm,
and then they were going to come good again. But as we were navigating through it, all of the anxiety, it manifested for me personally into really extreme stress responses. So one night I had a time when my vision completely went black for, it felt like forever. It might have only been 30 seconds or a minute, but I thought that I'd completely lost my vision. I was getting numbness in my hands. It
mm,
was just a really, really awful time. And even though we knew that there was light coming at the end of the tunnel, I was just done. I
mm,
am like, we can't keep juggling all of these balls. And this level of stress, my body is starting to actually shut down. So
mm,
we made the really tough decision to sell our property in Sydney. And, and we came out the other side. My husband ended up having a fantastic month the month after that. But yeah, I want to share this story because I'm really vulnerable in my spaces with my one-on-one clients, with my masterminders. I just want to keep it real that this is normal. It's normal to go through challenging times. Amy Porterfield, like the biggest names in the world, go through times where their cash flow and their profit isn't where they want it to be.
mm.
And I see behind a lot of people's books, a lot of people who online look like they're absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, actually, when people are scaling, the stakes get a lot higher.
Mm,
Yet you might go, oh, how could they have struggles? They're making millions of dollars a year. They've got massive teams or warehouses or um, mortgages or loans, business loans. And so this can happen to anyone at any stage. And I like to be really vulnerable around that. I do think the best tool that you do have in your toolbox to avoid this happening is exactly that, is knowing your numbers
mm,
and having your plan looking forward. Because this is what we can do when we can see it's coming. I, I'm not getting caught out by surprise suddenly that I can't afford groceries for the week.
Yeah.
I knew looking at my plan, hey, this is what's going to be coming, and this time is where things are going to get really, really tough.
Mm.
And even though it doesn't fix the problem, a lot of my clients say to me, it just feels so much better having that knowledge or having that understanding that it's coming, because I can start to create a strategy around it. Even if the only strategy is having a different mindset around it.
Yes.
But most of the time, what we can then do is go, okay, right, let's go and ask for a different payment plan. Let's go and launch something new.
Yeah.
Let's cut our expenses right back for this period of time. So it's an empowerment piece knowing your numbers.
Absolutely. It gives that psychological confidence to know it. I
Mm.
can speak from experience with that, whether it was in the school space or my own business. And absolutely having that cash flow forecast is a game changer because, yeah, there's definitely a sense of confidence and empowerment in knowing what's coming, what's ahead.
Mm.
And also, more recently for me, it gave me that in my own business excitement and inspiration just from the practical numbers to go, oh, okay, so I could do this and this and this, and also help me get clear. Like it's a constant in business. I find a constant process, and in life, constant process of clearing, decluttering, clarifying. Based on your intention, based on your authentic offerings, because sometimes we can layer and add new things onto our businesses, but being able to strip back and really refine and see from a page of numbers where the best sort of bang for buck is that's still in alignment with who you are really helps that clarifying process. Yeah, that I have had that experience. I find that really helpful. So I fully support what you're saying.
Love that. Love.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story too, because it is good to just normalize, we're human beings and we all essentially have the same challenges from time to time, just at different levels. And we're here to learn the wisdom from those experiences and ideally grow from them if we go into them consciously, right? And then if we're in the position to be able to help others and share those learnings, that's even more powerful because that ripple effect is just beautiful. So, if there were only one, is it there was just one thing or a couple of things, like the key messages that you could really get to reach, whether it's women who you're wanting to feel more empowered or just the general person, what is it that they could do? As one or two things that they could do to really shift into that sense of empowerment and start to change their mindset around money and profit?
The first thing I would say is do the money mindset work, is really start to understand what are my underlying stories and my beliefs.
Mm.
Really start to go, what do I believe about money and where have these stories come from? And is this going to serve me to build the life that I want to build? And I know the next question invariably that people ask me after that is, how do I start
How?
this work?
Yeah.
uh, Read books, listen to podcasts. My first book that I read was called Get Rich Lucky Bitch by
I
Denise
love that
Thomas.
one.
And Denise and I have now become friends over the years. I'm going to be going away to conference next week with her. But I loved her book. I thought it was a really fantastic, great first step. I talk about money mindset in my book as well. There's a ton of podcasts about it. So find a mentor whose the way that they communicate resonates and just start doing the work. Just start reading, start learning more about this. And you'll have these little light bulb moments. Oh my gosh, that's why I spend all my money the second it comes in. Oh my gosh, that's why I'm so scared to spend any money and I keep it all hoarded away in a bank account. Oh my gosh, that's why I keep doing work for free because I feel uncomfortable with receiving money or charging my worth. So that would be the first step. The second step is start to learn the practical skills around money management. So, actually, whether you do a course or teach yourself or whatever you do, actually start to educate yourself in this space. I have done and I continue to do so much in this space, both in the business side and the personal side. I love to follow new leaders and learn new skills and strategies. Some will resonate, some won't. Um, there's a particular methodology around profit that I don't agree with, that a lot of people, it's quite well known. I don't agree with it. I don't believe in a one size fits all, but that's just my thoughts. That's my belief. Whereas I know for a lot of other people, it's exactly what they need. Similarly, in the space of money management, I know that some people love a strict down to the cent budget, and other people like that's just not going to work for me.
Yeah.
But educate yourself, learn more about it, and then when you find a strategy or methodology that works for you, implement it
Mm,
and stick with it. My frameworks that I teach are exactly what I use myself, both in business and personally. I
mm,
do a cash flow meeting every Monday. I do a money meeting every Friday, and every month I do a meeting with my accountant. I've got my meeting tomorrow with my accountant.
mhm.
So I use these exact strategies myself, and I know that they work. And I think that you've just got to find your system, stick with it,
Yes.
and yeah, and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
And though I do see the value in having a mentor or someone to help you find those blind spots or to be able to find the right books, the right resources. So for people, you mentioned that you mostly work with people who are in 6 and 7 figure businesses. They're sort of your main offerings. Are there any other ways that people who aren't at that level yet in their business or just in life that they could access your work and work with you apart from your book and your podcast?
Absolutely. I think the first thing to do is grab a copy of my book.
Yeah.
That is the first, I had this negative review written on it. It was written for, how was it what? It was written for primary schoolers or something. And I had a giggle. I'm like, well, the intention of writing it was this isn't an accounting textbook. I mean, it was to be for the average business owner who is starting from scratch. And so the book is simply bringing you, across some of the basic concepts.
Mm,
Then from there, I've got a $29 course that people can buy, which is called Confident Cash Flow, which really teaches you how to be managing your cash flow. I've got another course that teaches about business finances.
mm.
So there's lots of different levels that people can work with me. I also do speaking. So I have a podcast that's free, and I do paid speaking as well. So I speak at things like retreats and conferences and events as well. So there's
Yeah.
lots of different ways we can work together.
Yeah, fabulous, Claire. And as we start to wrap up, is there anything that I haven't asked you yet today that you'd really love to speak into, or you just want people to know, you'd feel inspired to share?
Yeah, look, I just did want to say to people that if you are listening, particularly at the start, we spoke about superpower and we were talking about uncovering your superpower.
Yes.
If you don't know what yours is yet, don't feel disheartened because it can take time to really uncover who you are and what your uniqueness is.
Mm,
I I find a lot of very powerful, educated leaders in business feel like they don't have a special something.
mm,
And you do, everyone does, but it might just take some time and some strategies to uncover exactly what that is. And I know for me, my aha moment came when someone said to me, but that's your thing. It
mm,
was actually someone else who could see in me something that I couldn't see in myself. So ask the people around you,
mm.
and say, What's my thing? What makes me uniquely me?" And then you might get some insights that will help you unlock what your magic is.
I love it so much. I just literally shared that exact strategy on my socials a couple of weeks ago.
Amazing.
I've been because I find so much value in asking the people around you, especially people who you respect. So people who you really respect and look up to, and who get to either work with you or see you in the role that you want feedback on, and asking them, what
Absolutely.
do you see
Yeah.
as my superpower? And
Yeah.
you've got to be in a position to, that's really having a growth mindset, isn't it? And being in a position to be intentional about growth, about receiving feedback, about being open to how you're perceived in the world and experienced by other people, because even that we can be blind to. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
it takes a fair bit of vulnerability as well, like to put your hand up and say, hey, I need some help in this space, or I can't
yeah.
see this in myself. And I truly do think that vulnerability is such a gift, being able to share with others. I need some help with my money. I need some help with my leadership. I need some help with understanding what my superpower is and yeah, I think one of the best ways that we can all lead is by being vulnerable ourselves and
Yeah.
allowing people to see that side as well.
Absolutely. It just makes us more and more authentic, doesn't it, in our
Mm,
roles and therefore more relatable to others too.
yeah,
And don't we want to be working with the people who really resonate with us anyway in our truest form? We don't want to be
absolutely.
flashing around falsely on social media and holding this, yeah, persona that's not true. So, yeah, I love the work you're doing, Claire. I love the time that you've spent today. You've just given so much value in everything that you've shared. I really hope that listeners have really enjoyed this. I'd love to hear feedback, and I'll pop all of Claire's, how you can find her and work with her in the show notes. But Claire, do you want to just briefly share where people can find you right now?
Yeah, I think a great place to start is my book, Intentional Profit. Please come buy it off my website, which is clarewood.com, because Jeff Bezos, Amazon takes so much of a clip. I only get $3 if you buy it through Amazon. So my website is Clarewood, Clare wood.com, and you can connect with me over there. I've got my socials and things like that. But if you send me a DM on Insta, I'm on Instagram, and yeah.
Great. That's so fabulous. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. It's lovely talking to you. You're an inspiring woman, and yeah, you're just such a pleasure to be in the company of. So wishing you every success, Claire, and that for the people who are working with you too.
Thank you so much for having me.
See you soon.
Yay.